What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the FansToys Phantasm with the Transform Element Speedstar, both versions of a Masterpiece Mirage. So the FansToys just came out in November of 22. The Transform Element came out in August of 2020. So about 2 years apart for these figures. And both pretty good versions. So this guy has been my Mirage for a while. I did do a versus with the MMC Sphinx version way back. I'm not going to include it in this comparison. One, because I don't have any more, but two, because this guy won the comparison. So there's really no reason to bring back that robot, which we'll probably lose in this one too. With that being said, I try to be as objective as possible in these comparisons, but of course there's subjectivity involved. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do this comparison to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collections. So with that being said, let's get started, and we'll start off with accessories. All right, and here are the accessories that come with both of them. Very similar accessories. So you get the gun here, the blaster, obviously painted differently. Now, I think the silver looks pretty good, but this is more cartoon accurate, so there you go for those. They both come with an extra head. Now, the TE head is very similar between the two. They almost seem like the same exact head, but the FansToys one is slightly smaller on the ears here, but there you go for that. They both come with a smiling face, so you can have him laughing or smiling, whatever. And FansToys comes with one extra face, which is this upset, angry, whatever you want to call it, yelling face. So we'll give accessories just by a nose over to FansToys. All right, next we'll talk about the gimmicks on these two, and neither of them really have any gimmicks. They're pretty simple in terms of what they can do. So I'm going to give them a tie on gimmicks. All right, next let's talk about the cartoon accuracy and the sculpt. So in order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And both of them actually look pretty good. And until I had this one in hand, I really thought this nailed that cartoon look, at least better than MMC did. But now that I have this guy, I think it's even more tuned. Now, some people, that's not going to be what they want, but I do think FansToys really nailed it with the colors overall. So they went with the darker or lighter blue for the feet, knees, spoiler, and then this piece is here. The Transform Element with silver on the feet, knees, and spoiler. And then they don't really have these pieces on the side. They just have a wider chest, whereas this one's kind of a thinner chest. And again, I think the head sculpt also on the FansToys is closer to the cartoon. While this is a good-looking head sculpt, it's just not as close. And it's also they went with a gray instead of with the lighter blue there. And I think the gray was to match, obviously, all the gray and silver they put on the figure. Now, coming to the side, they're both very, very clean and similar. I think they pretty much look identical, just slightly wider on the Transform Element. You do have the wheel that sticks out a little bit. So when it comes to sculpt, I think FansToys did something special here because they were able to hide that wheel on the profile. The Transform Element hides it pretty well, but it's still sticking out just a hair. But when you come to the back, that's where you can see a little more uncleanliness. The FansToys is really clean in terms of the legs. The Transform Element, you've got the spoilers down here, a little bit of stuff going on here, and then the backpack, still super, super clean. But I think this one just looks cleaner. So I'm going to give Sculpt over to FansToys as well. I think they nailed that in terms of the look of the character, but also just cleanliness. All right, next we're going to talk about the paint on these two. And this one's kind of a gimme for FansToys because it is 100% fully painted. The Transform Element is not fully painted, so you have the face, I believe the white here on this chest is painted, the silver on these pieces here, but then the arms are of white plastic, the thighs are white plastic, the crotch area is a blue plastic, legs are blue plastic. You have some paint here on the side, but because there's so much just white plastic, although it looks good, it is not painted. So I'm going to give it over to FansToys. They just nails paint every time. All right, next we'll talk about the build quality on these two. And build was actually an issue I had with the Transform Element. Some of the joints are actually a little bit loose, specifically these knees. They're double jointed, but because they're on pin joints, those pin joints loosen up. I've put a lot of kiki in these over time, so it's a little bit better now. These were also extremely loose. Again, I've got lots and lots of kiki in there holding it up. So that definitely helps, but due to the way they designed it and the fact that there's no ratchets, I think that's part of the reason why the build quality on this is a little bit less, especially because they're using pin joints, and then the plastic they're using, just over time, it does loosen. So far, the FansToys, I mean, it is pretty new, but they do have some ratchets and, of course, die-cast built into a lot of this. So I'm going to give build quality over to FansToys. All right, next we'll talk about the articulation. In order to articulate each figure individually, and I'll keep a tally of the number of points of articulation, which is how I've been doing it recently. I'm not looking at range of motion, but the rocket go up and down on this joint and in and out on an angle. The head is on a rotating swivel, so it goes down to there, up to there until it collides. You can remove the backpack and then his head can go up higher, but I wouldn't count that as articulation because it is blocked by its own build. And then you can rotate the head all the way around. The shoulders go around on a friction joint, out to the side, up to there. Your rotation at the bicep all the way around. Single jointed elbow gets you a little past 90 degrees, or quite a bit past 90 degrees. For the hands, you have a rotation at the wrist. The fingers are on a single pin, and they are curled, so you can't really get it pointed. You have a waist rotation here on a ratchet. It does go all the way around. And then you have an ab crunch here, but very, very minuscule, almost not even there. A couple degrees, I'd say maybe 5 degrees of ab crunch. The legs go up to here, and the whole hip skirt moves with it. Back to here on a joint at the actual thigh. This hip skirt will go out of the way to allow the leg to go up to there. Rotation at the thigh. Single jointed knee, but it gets you well past 90 degrees. And it's ratcheted. Ankle tilt in both directions. Pretty limited, not a lot of movement, but it does move. And then you have a toe tilt upwards. And that's it for FansToys. For the transform element, the head is also on a rotating swivel. You have to kind of hold this front piece because it likes to move. I don't know why they designed it that way, but the head goes up to there without moving anything, so that's nice. It does come forward, so you can get him, way down because of that. Rotation to the side, and you can get side to side look as well. So a lot more movement out of that head and neck, because this actually has a neck joint. You have rotation here, just like the other one, and up and down on this. The shoulders can move all the way around, out to there. Rotation at the bicep. Double jointed elbow gets you the full bend. Rotation at the wrist. You have an individually articulated thumb, as well as the pointer finger. They are on a single pin, but the pointer finger moves independently. So slightly more articulation on this hand, although I wouldn't write home about either of these, to be honest. There is articulation on this panel here. I've actually found it as an irritation, but it is a slightly more articulated, so you can get different looks on these panels if you want to. You have a rotation at the waist. If you lift up on this, there's an ab crunch here, so you get a significant ab crunch, all the way up to there. And if you lift it up all the way off of this joint, it's actually locked in here, and you have to unlock it. So you actually get a second ab crunch. Then you can rotate it on that joint, so you can rotate all the way around. But without lifting it off that joint, it does have trouble rotating around. But you get a double jointed ab crunch there. For the legs, you can move this hip skirt out of the way. It's got a little tiny one on the side. Legs go up to there. Back to here, there's a hip skirt back here. And then out to the side, all on friction. Rotation at the thigh. You get a double jointed knee, gets you the full bend on this one for sure. You get I think it's a rotation at the thigh. Ankle tilt out to the side. You have a toe tilt down and up. And the heel is kind of just, it moves either way. It's not really, it doesn't really do anything, so I won't count that. But because of the extra joints, so you got a double jointed elbow, double jointed knees, ab ab crunch, actually double jointed ab crunch. We're going to give it over to Transform Element. They just have better articulation, period. All right, next we'll talk about the transformation and engineering. When it comes to the transformation, I got to give it to FansToys. This is a really fun, intuitive transformation. I didn't take more than one time to learn it. And to be honest, FansToys has really improved on their transformations. This year alone, every figure that I've bought from FansToys has been fun. And that's not typical for them. Usually they're complex transformations. The Transform Element definitely has a more complex transformation, especially the way this works. This rocket, you got to take the rocket out, but two, this is just a little frustrating to get it in the right position so that you can get it all transformed. And then this panel here is just kind of wonky. But when it comes to transformation, we're going to give it to FansToys. When it comes to engineering, I'm also going to give it to FansToys because they did the quote-unquote perfect transformation where you can take the rocket and put it inside. Now, you will risk scratching up the very tip here because it goes down inside the chest here. But just the fact they were able to do something like that design, I find that really cool. It's a cool engineering touch. So I'm going to give it engineering as well to FansToys. And there they both are in their vehicle modes. Both pretty good looking, but different approaches. I'll put the G1 image there. FansToys obviously went for that super tune look here. Pretty darn clean. They have the little white piece here. Steering wheel, rear view mirrors. They did have the seat molded, but there's nothing painted. No details there. Same for the engine. They have the engine here in this die-cast silver, but no details painted on that. So they went for just kind of a smooth look. Here's the back. It's pretty clean. Chrome wheels and rubber tires. Overall, really nice and solid too. It's just a brick, and it's clean on the bottom too. So just overall very clean and solid. The TE went for more realistic vehicle, so they got the molded seat painted there. Steering wheel, a translucent fairing there for the windshield. You have an engine here painted black, and then it says Ford on it. That's painted in. They went for silver wheels with not quite rubber. This is like a plastic rubber, so it's a softer plastic. It still gives that effect, but this rubber really gives you that feel, almost like a real slick. And then they went for the silver front spoiler and rear spoiler. Now the rear is kind of a little bit untidy. They've got this armature here in black, and then they got the feet back here. So it just looks a little less clean. And then the other thing, it's not very solid. Like there's these panels here that kind of flip up. The wheels are supposed to stay, locked in place like that, but sometimes they push up. These are also folded down, but if you push down on it, these will pop up. So you gotta make sure those are pushed all the way down. So little details on the Transform Element just keep it from being really, really solid. The other thing is you can also mount the weapon here, which I forgot to show in my review, unfortunately. But you can mount this weapon onto his spoiler. For the Transform Element, you really can't do that. You can kind of fake it. You can just sort of stick it there. I don't know if this is meant for storage, but it's backwards, first of all. And it really doesn't fit properly. So for all those reasons, I'm going to give the Ultimate over to FansToys. I just think it's a better looking, more solid, and overall more appealing vehicle. All right, next we'll talk about the cost. And in my last video, people asked where did I get the cost from. So I am using Ages 3 and Up, which is a sister store to Toy Dojo and Madhouse. And I use their store prices because they're the most consistent. They don't change the prices once they set them in the US retail. And their prices are consistent with Toy Dojo, the Chosen Prime, Madhouse, BBTS, so on and so forth. So for that reason, I use the price. So there are the prices. The Transform Element comes in at $100 retail. The FansToys comes in at $160. So Transform Element is going to win on price. Now I know that this guy went on a huge sale and went down to like $60. Either way, he's going to win on cost, so it doesn't really matter. And the final factor on this comparison is the members' choice, where I asked my members which one they prefer in terms of looks, and no other categories such as cost or build or anything else. And you can see the score there, and to my surprise, the Transform Element actually won the members' choice for looks. So we'll give it to Transform Element. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score there. And FansToys is going to win this one. Not a surprise there to me. What is a surprise, though, is the fact that the Transform element won the members' choice. And that was interesting because, I wasn't sure what kind of look people want. This one is hyper tuned. It's really, really tuned, even down to like the colors. And I think the colors can be off-putting for some people. For me personally, I like the look. I like the tune look. I like the colors. But I know there's people who think that blue just looks weird. The Transform element really went for a good balance between the tune look, the toy look, and a realistic vehicle look, right? Kind of a mix of those, a blend. And I think people are still looking for that. There's still a customer base for that look. So if that's the kind of thing you want, I think this one will serve you better. But as far as build quality and overall tune look, I think FansToys just nailed it on this character. I really like this guy. Now, getting this guy is going to be tough because Transform Element has kind of gone under the radar. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they've stopped producing figures. Now, Show Z is the one who sent me the message saying that I had the clear version of this guy on pre-order. And they said that they contacted BMB. BMB's Black Mamba. They actually own Transform Element brand. And Black Mamba told them they're not going to be producing it. If it comes out, great, but that's what they told me. They said they suggest canceling my order for the clear version, the Transform Element Mirage. So that tells me they're probably not going to make it again. If they do, it'll probably be under a different name, or maybe it'll be reproduced in a different packaging or something like that. But as for now, it looks like we're not going to be able to get any more figures from Transform Element. So that's a little bit sad. So I'll have to find out in the secondary market. By the way, that's it for this comparison. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.